I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And as everyone should know, if they didn't know already, the Final Botdown is coming very soon. And I thought, given the proximity of the event upcoming, now would be a really great time, as people have requested for a while, to have Kezia Skye on the show to talk about Chainsaw Kitty, which is definitely a fan favorite and a robot that many, many people want to qualify at this event. So excited to have you back, Kezia.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So, a couple of things, because I don't know a lot about you other than the fact that people love your robot. And so, I'd really be interested to hear a little bit more about your background. What drew you, like it did to all of us, to say, I'm going to build a combat robot?
Yeah, I mean, it got ingrained in me as a kid, back when original BattleBots was a thing on Comedy Central, and that I watched that as a kid relentlessly. Ziggo was my favorite bot. I named my first hamster after Ziggo. I've wanted to build one for a long time, but I don't really have like a background in like mechanics or like electronics or anything like that. So I never really got into it because it seemed like something that wasn't possible, especially when, nowadays BattleBots is 250 pounders. Like one of those, I could buy multiple of my car for the price of one of those. So it's not super feasible for me. And it was probably like a couple years ago that somehow I found my way to NHRL's YouTube channel, and I was watching that, and I'm like, got really obsessed with that too. And these are a lot smaller than 250s and a lot more affordable. So the idea started getting back in my head. I should build a bot. I was finding YouTube content of people who have built bots, notably Seth Schaefer. I was watching every video from Seth because he has a bunch of great tutorials and like design overview sort of things. And honestly, that's really what got me started. So I like to try to plug him when I can, because I do have to thank him a lot for that. And yeah, watching NHRL, I got obsessed with the idea of making it. And I spent about 6 months just like coming home every day researching, the mechanical design concepts, how the electronics all work, like all that stuff, looking at everybody's builds in the Discord, asking questions, and just 6 months of obsession of learning all that stuff, learning CAD, and Kitty was born.
See, you did it the right way. I did it in I'm going to decide to build this robot in a couple of months way.
There's nothing wrong with that. Having your first bot put together and going through the first event is going to be like one of the biggest learning experiences. That's when you'd be like, oh, that thing I did was really dumb and that doesn't work at all like I thought it was going to. Or for Kitty's first event, I had an electrical short, which made the weapon straight up not work, which I didn't know about because before then I had only done like a 3D printed plastic prototype where like every part was plastic. But the real one, it's got, metal uprights, it's got a metal chassis. So when I had everything screwed together, suddenly things weren't working and I didn't test it in the metal chassis. So didn't realize until that event. You'll probably find something like that in your bot.
Yes, it takes a lot of testing and learning, I am finding, for sure. Yeah, because interestingly enough, I mean, I don't think, there's so many robots at NHRL that I don't necessarily, well, at least I know a lot more of them now than I used to. But when I came in May, I really was not super aware of Chainsaw Kitty. I just heard, a lot of buzz about the robot. And, I saw you walking around. And like the really funny thing is, and I mean this is like the highest level of compliment, that I was like super intimidated. And I don't get intimidated. Like I will talk to anybody. And I was just like, she looks so cool.
I get a lot of people telling me that I'm intimidating. Even at the last event, Ricky was on the announcer's desk and he's talking about how, like, oh, Kezia is one of the bots I would least want to have to stare down on the opposite side of the box before the cage. Such a presence, so intimidating. I swear I'm nice. I go blank faced and nobody's interacting with me.
Yeah, no, can confirm. I mean, the brief interactions that I've had with you, absolutely, you're a wonderful person. But yeah, I mean, I was just like, wow, like, it's awesome because I think, back, because you said you watched older BattleBots and stuff like that, and I did too. And you didn't see the level of diversity that we do today in combat robotics. And so, even now though, I'm like, wow, there's like this bad, I'm trying not to swear on my show, but like chick that is just like really cool, and it's just like it's almost like a good surprise, and I want to see more of that. Like there's so many people that I think maybe just don't think that they have the ability to do it, or like it's gonna take all of this time, which it does, but like it's worth it in the end, I think, when you get the final product.
Absolutely. It has been very worth it. A lot of money, but worth it.
Yes. Yeah, for anybody that hasn't got into the process of building a robot, yeah, not gonna lie, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. It does kind of come down to how you build your robot. Like Kitty's not a cheap design. I mean, I'm running a machined aluminum chassis and that alone's like $150. Like not a cheap design, but you can do things that are fairly cheap. Something like, I mean, I don't know how much a crash press costs, but I mean, it's mostly just TPU and a little bit of metal. Like that's a pretty cheap design. You can definitely do it on a budget and have a really good bot.
Right, exactly. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on your expectations and what you're hoping to get out of it. I mean, for you, was this like, because some people obviously get into it because they want to be competitive. I personally, like, I'm super competitive, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. And some people get into it to have fun. Some people kind of a combination of both. But like, when you built Kitty, what was the goal for you?
The first goal was for it to not blow up when I turned it on. I succeeded. And that first event was pretty well. That was a 3-2, some decent wins, and most of the losses were a lot attributed to that electrical short that just made my weapon straight up not work. And then I had a few more events where Kitty was doing good, way better than I ever thought I would. And then I started feeling that competitiveness kick in. At first, it was like, I just want something that works. And then I started winning, and I'm like, oh, winning kind of feels good.
And see, that's exactly it though, because I think, a lot of people, when I get down on myself or whatever, they're like, it's all about having fun, which it is. But when you do get some wins, it does make you feel a certain way, and like you just want to do that more. And I mean, I think we all realize like there's a possibility that you can go to any event, no matter how dialed in your bot is, and like not do well.
Absolutely.
Because the level of competition at NHRL is so insane that like you could get matched up with somebody that's just really more dialed in than you, and like that's it. So
and I mean, there's so much random chance in the sport too. Like, sometimes once in a while, maybe the motor just breaks on the first hit. Like, you never know. Like, it can happen. They're not meant to do these things. They're meant to drive an airplane. Like, something can always fail for any reason.
Yes, it 100% can. Now, one thing that I definitely wanted to ask you about, because it just, when I saw it happening in the Discord, I was like, what is going on? Why are people being mean to Chainsaw Kitty? And like then, I quickly realized, and somebody like explained to me that it's not people actually being mean, that like you like that motivation to make yourself feel like you need to be better.
So that's all rooted in, like, I don't have very great self-confidence. And oh my gosh. And it was always a joke between me and like mostly like Kyle and the other announcers that like they'd ask me how I'm doing, how I'm feeling about the competition. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do. It's probably going to be bad. And then like Kitty would have another great event. Like literally like the one event where I think this kind of started was, I can't remember what event it was, but it was the one where I made it all the way to almost the qualifying round and I was fighting Droopy and nearly beat Droopy. And that was a really good showing. But like the whole time I'm like, oh, the bot's not going to work. Like I literally came into that event with weapon belt tension issues because I made some mistakes adjusting things for my weapon pulley and things were just too tight. I had to do some really weird things to make it work. So the whole time I'm like, this is going to fail any fight. It's going to do bad. And she just kept winning. So it sort of became this joke that the lower my expectations, the better I will do. If I think I'm going to do awful, it's going to do great. So that's sort of, everybody seemed to pick up on that. And now everybody in the Discord says, oh, Chainsaw Kitty's the worst bot I ever made. Chainsaw Kitty's never going to qualify. Who the hell drives that thing? They're awful.
That's so weird because I actually, in my limited experience, I've also found that like when I didn't expect to win, I did better. You know, like my first match, I mean, those guys are like so fantastic, but my first match was against, you know, brand new builders, you know, just like me, although at the time I hadn't built anything. I was driving, you know, a borrowed robot, but and I was like, oh, well, this you know, should be, you know, fairly even. And that was probably one of my tougher matches, to be honest. But then I was fighting Joe Fabiani and I'm like, I'm losing this. Like, this is a BattleBot builder. I am not winning this. And so, you know, I didn't expect to, but it's something, I don't know if this happens for you, but like that when you're in that match and you're like thinking you're going to lose, that something just kicks in and you're like, no, I'm not. And it's just like a whole other gear that starts happening.
Yeah, your confidence going into a fight can really change sort of like your decision making and like how you go about the fight. I've definitely gone into fights being like, oh, I got this. And then I just drive worse. I like, you know, I'm swinging my big stick around like, oh, I got this. They're going to die. I don't have to worry about it. And then I lose because like, you know, I'm in this mindset that I'm going to win this fight. So I'm not trying to win the fight in a way. I'm just trying to get it over with, kind of, if that makes sense. But I've also gotten into fights where I'm like, oh, I totally am losing in this. There's no way I'm winning. And then I've won. So sort of part of that joke about Kitty being the worst robot ever made is also trying to get me to not be confident. Because when I'm too confident, I drive really badly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people have different ways of motivating themselves. So I completely get that. And now, you know, looking at the lineup, I mean, I think most people assumed this is the last qualifying event. It's going to be loaded. It is, no surprise there. Is there anybody that you're like excited to potentially get matched up about, or anybody that you're like, oh no, this would be a really bad matchup, I really don't want to fight this person?
I'm really worried about this event. It's going to be brutal. And unfortunately, it's the last chance. A lot of the bots on that list are ones I wish I wouldn't have to fight. But I will probably, if I'm going to make it deep, have to get through many of them. So that's unfortunate. Lynx is back. That's scary. Kitty's always scared of these really small drums because they tend to beat out big horizontals really well. So we've got Voxel's coming back like he always is. Puka's coming back from January. That looked really scary in January, and I know it's better since then. There's a lot to be afraid of this event. So I don't have the overconfidence problem this time, I promise.
Yeah, there is, and it's almost like my reassurance is that if I go in there and get my butt kicked immediately, there's absolutely no feeling bad because it was probably somebody that's fantastic and like I should have gotten my butt kicked. So
yeah. I'm like looking forward to this event being over because I sort of set a goal for myself this year to make it to finals. And whether I accomplish that goal or don't accomplish this goal, I don't have to think about it anymore after this event. And I can get it out of my brain and just focus on having fun again.
That is very
So
true.
win or lose, I'm excited for this event to be over.
That makes complete sense. Now, knowing, I know that NHRL has, we don't have all the information yet, but it sounds like there's going to be even more events next year, and
Mhm.
they're going to be in some different locations. Is that exciting? Because then that, does mean that there's more chances to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, for like Kitty and my team, it's kind of going to depend on where they are if we go to other events. But at the very least, if you put one on the West Coast, we don't have to worry about Calvin Eba and Tommy Wong. They can stay on their coast until the finals. And that's a couple more bots to not have to worry about. But
That
yeah,
is
I mean,
true.
I am definitely excited for NHRL to keep growing. I love it. I love this sport. And the growth is really good to see. I'm excited to see where they put these new events.
Yes, I am curious about that as well. I know there's a lot of people that have very strong opinions about where those events should be, but we'll see what
Yeah,
ultimately ends up happening.
just put
Uh,
one on the West Coast. Keep them over there.
at least one, maybe
Yeah.
two, Um, yeah, that would definitely be interesting. Now, as far as, like, is it for the foreseeable future at this point that you are just fully sticking with Kitty, or do you have any thoughts or plans to ever come up with an additional bot or a different bot, or anything like that?
Yeah. I love Kitty. Kitty's not going anywhere. I don't want to do anything massive to Kitty. It's really stayed mostly the same basic design since the first event, just minor tweaks, improvements from there. I don't want to change Kitty too much. I love it as it is. As for other bots, probably nothing that's meant to be competitive. I have something goofy in mind for the new bots event for next year that hopefully I can get working. Otherwise, I'm kind of getting some of that bot creativity out through some of my teammates. I'm building a bot for Ryan to drive in the new bots event. I'm helping other members of my team with their bot designs. So I still kind of have outlets for that creativity, but Kitty's not going anywhere.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm sure a lot of people would be excited to know that. Now, one other thing that I wanted to ask, just because, now going through this process, I'm really curious, but I mean, for you, as somebody who had not built, prior to learning everything and building your own robot, what do you think were some of the biggest challenges for you in that process? Because I think everybody kind of has different strengths or things that they are able to come to naturally, and other things, of course, not. For me, I if I ever learned to solder properly, it would be a miraculous thing.
I did have like little bits and pieces of like prior experience that helped me with this. Like I had done a lot of soldering projects
Okay.
in my life. I've always been one to tear apart electronics and stuff. So I feel like I sort of like was already predisposed to like, be good at screwing things together and soldering things together. Learning CAD took a little bit. I had experience with some other like 3D modeling sort of programs, like Unity and Blender. So that sort of translated, but that took a bit to get used to. Fusion has a bit of a different work style that I actually really like now, and which I wish every program used. But that took a bit to get a handle on. But it is a lot when you come from not really knowing a lot of it to now I need to know all of it because I'm doing this all on my own. It is a lot. But the community is very helpful. YouTube's an amazing resource, and yeah, I got through it.
That's awesome. And it's cool that you went from that to now you're like helping other people with building robots. It's not just yourself. So that's super awesome. Well, I mean, I'm excited about well, by the time this comes up, it'll be like a couple days.
Mm.
So this is just super excited. I think that it's going to be a fun event. Even though I'm competing, I'll certainly be rooting for Kitty, and hope that you do well. You know, it would be lovely if, you know, we could both go deep into the tournament, but my bot isn't even functional right now. So
yeah, I'm hoping for a deep run. I'm hoping for finals. We'll see what happens.
yes,
Like I
absolutely.
said, either way, I get to stop thinking about it. So
very true, very true. Well, everybody, if you love combat robotics and you are not watching the NHRL stream on Saturday, you should have a really good excuse while you're not watching it, because it's probably going to be just a tremendous event, lots of really good matches, and
it'll be brutal.
Yeah, it'll be brutal. It absolutely will. So check that out. Keep following the show, like, subscribe, keep supporting combat robotics, and we'll see everyone next time.